Everybody, this is Jill, Wigmore-Welsh here, and I'm recording this short vlog today as an introduction to some of the work that I do. Part of the work that I do involves something called Feldenkrais, and I thought it would be a useful thing to record a brief introduction to what the training for a practitioner, somebody who practices in Feldenkrais, what it actually included and didn't include. So in order to gain some background, if I could just explain that I completed the course, what I call the basic recognised course in Feldenkrais, and that's the International Feldenkrais Federation format recognised course. I completed that in 1999, and since then I've gone on and done other forms of training, but this is all about that particular course. I put up on this vlog the website for the International Feldenkrais Federation so that you can actually go in yourself if you want to and have a look and see what the course is, how the course is described. But what's really important is to recognise that the training that's recognised by the International Feldenkrais Federation is designed to support the premise that the Feldenkrais work, as sorted out by Moshe Feldenkrais and as described by the International Feldenkrais Federation, is that it's not a massage or a bodywork or a therapeutic technique, it's a learning process. And that's really important because in most countries, if you are practicing massage or bodywork or some sort of therapeutic process, you have to be registered as a practitioner in those processes. So the basic training, as I call it, the basic recognised 4-year training is 800 hours, plus you usually have to do a certain number of one-to-one lessons, the functional integration lessons through the course of that time, and additional time watching other people receiving lessons, watching videos, looking at additional presentations that are brought in by visiting teachers. Now, people come in onto that training from a variety of backgrounds. It might be that they have already done a clinical training, so they might be a doctor, a physiotherapist, which is my background, osteopath, chiropractor, they might be a yoga teacher, they might be a personal trainer, but they might also be something like a lawyer, they might be an actor or an actress or a singer or a dancer or a musician. The main requirements, or they might have a medical problem. For example, they might have a neurological issue such as Parkinson's or MS, or any of the neurological impairments, and decide that they want to go on the training course because it's going to provide them with a lot of hours of actually doing the work. A pre-requirement for going on the course obviously is an interest in the work, but also having completed some work yourself, going to lessons, going to Feldenkrais classes, perhaps even attending one-to-one lessons with a practitioner. So the background, people going into the work, because it's not a therapeutic technique, because it's not a form of bodywork, because it's not a form of massage, because it is a learning method, it is something that people go into and learn to do, and then at a certain point they begin to start to blend whatever experience and knowledge they had in the past with what it is that they're doing on the training course. So why is this important? Well, it's very important because a lot of times people have a problem when they go to see somebody else. So oftentimes, let's say it's a bit like your car. How often would you take your car into the garage when it was absolutely running fine and it wasn't due to have a service? And you just thought, well, we just pass in the garage, I think I'll just pop in and see what the garage mechanic thinks of my car. Most times you'd only pop into the garage if there seemed to be an issue, or if it needed a service or an MOT, as we have in this country, or it needed new tyres, or something needed to be done to it, or you could hear a sound, or something was going on and there was a problem. And mostly with most of the things that we do, with our bodies and our what we call soma, our physical sense of ourself, it's the same. If everything seems to be running smoothly, we just trog along and we say to ourselves, well, that's okay, I don't have any pain, I don't have any limitation, I don't have any issue. So it can often be that people actually start to go along to see somebody for some support and advice when they have a problem with their body. So understanding a little bit about where your Feldenkrais trained person comes from, their background, will give you an idea about what it is that they're probably going to be really good and skilled at working with. So depending on what it is that you're looking for, if for example you are somebody who has a particular interest in their voice, and one of the ways that I came across Feldenkrais work right at the very beginning was that I was doing work with people who had issues with their breathing. These were actually people with medical problems. These were people who had issues to do with what we call hyperventilation syndrome, overbreathing. They were stressed. They had anxiety issues. They were people who had food intolerances. They were people who had post-viral syndromes. They were people who had what was called ME. So they were very fatigued. Some of them had what's called fibromyalgia. So they all had medically diagnosed issues, and for quite a number of them, one of the ways that I was working with them was to work with their breath, their way they were breathing. So I went off and I did a workshop called Free Your Breath and Voice, and I was the only physiotherapist on that workshop. Most of the other people there were singers, they were people using their voice all the time in their work. Now in that kind of capacity, the work that that person who was running the course, the training day, she was working not as a physiotherapist, not as a medical person. She wasn't working to address any clinical issues. She was working purely on breath and voice work. So I suppose a background to something like that, if it was going to be a therapist, maybe the only best placed therapist to come from might be a speech therapist. As a physiotherapist, obviously I have an issue in voice work, but let's say somebody had had a stroke and they were having really quite severe issues to do with the way that they were producing sounds, the way that their brain was formulating words, then it may well be that a speech therapist would be somebody that I would ask to work with that person. Somebody might have cognitive memory issues, word finding difficulties, and a speech therapist will be trained in all of those, plus they will be trained in voice production. But if they're not a therapist, where else might they have a background? Well, they might have a background in singing, as a singing teacher, somebody who has completed one of the recognised training courses in voice work, how to produce a different voice for singing, say, certain kinds of ballads or soft or rock or whatever. So that person might have a very strong background in that issue. But there is a huge difference between somebody having a clinical background and then adding on a training in Feldenkrais and somebody having, say, a voice work training. So what I'd like you to do is to be thinking a little bit about where it is that you're wanting to go if you're looking for a Feldenkrais practitioner to work with, somebody who's completed the training course, the full 4 years. And I'll go into a little bit more depth in the next vlog that I do in a few minutes time and talk about what the actual training included, what those 800 hours included, so that you know exactly what it is that the practitioners who you go to see, who run classes, you know what it is that they've covered. So thank you very much for this, and I look forward to hearing or you listening to me again in a little while. Take care. Bye.